It happened here, a stretch of California forest country which until now was of no particular distinction. Like most, the rich green of ponderosa pine stood in seamed canyons. At 4,000 feet, where the winter rains fall heaviest, the forest was thick with feathery Douglas fir and incense cedar mingled with pine. Along the face of the higher ridges grew the Jeffrey pine and white fir. Higher still, where it was steep and rocky and dry, patches of ponderosa edged toward the sun. And along the craggy tops of Sierra ridges, where winter snows are stronger, a few twisted hemlocks and digger pines struggled for survival among the harsh scrub of manzanita brush. Nothing unusual about this forest, unless you consider a tree somehow a miraculous thing. It was here, late in an August afternoon, that it began. Assignment 4, the weekly award-winning report to the West, produced in the community interest by KRON-TV. Tonight, Forest Fire, the story of the birth and death of a wilderness holocaust which could have happened, told with authentic films of several fires which did happen in the forests of California. After its first flaring blaze, the fire burned down to almost nothing. Being small and deep in the canyon and throwing off little smoke at first, it had gone undetected through the hour of sunset. And now in the night, it appeared hardly able to survive. Only a line of red glowed along the forest floor of dry needles, and occasionally a few twigs or a branch flared fitfully. With the night's cold, the humidity rose until it was close to a point of dew, and even that much moisture might have contained the uncertain flames. But as the night chill deepened, the air along the ridges grew colder more rapidly than that in the canyons, and the heavy, colder air began to slide down the mountainsides. This draft fanned the glowing line of red, and the coals began to glow brighter and spread. And then with the dawn and the warmer air of morning came a southerly breeze. The fire took hold and flared. The line was burning out of the trees now and into the brush along the rocky upgrade, brush tinder dry in the Sierra slopes of August. And as it blazed, it threw up its first thick smoke above the tops of trees. But a stiffer breeze 900 feet above the canyon floor dissipated the smoke before it could top the nearest ridges. And for the moment, the fire burned on unseen. It was almost 8 o'clock before the smoke built up enough to be seen above the misty ridges enclosing the canyon. To the lookout high in a fire tower, it was at first all but indistinguishable from the morning haze hanging along the horizon. But experienced eyes studied it a moment longer. No doubt now there was fire somewhere over that ridge. She sighted in on the smoke, quickly plotted its position, and gave the alarm.
Dispatcher's office, Pettigrew. Los Padres, you got a fire, Ted. Township 9 North, range 29 West, section 25, down in the Sisquoc. That's liable to be a bad one. I'll alert the forest, and you call the air tank or the air base. Right. This is control to all stations. Control to all stations.
The blaze is 4 miles from the nearest fire road, and these men will be hiking in. It'll be 2 hours before they're on the scene. The tanker trucks with their hose and water and cylinders of fire-depressant chemicals will stand by in case the fire spreads to an area where it can be reached by road, or until heavy-duty Caterpillar tractors arrive to scrape out a fire road. Meanwhile, it'll be men fighting for time that's on the side of the fire now. But the firefighters have another ally, the smoke jumpers. They'll be at the fire scene within minutes. These are the elite shock troops of the Forest Service. At 20 to 28 years of age, already seasoned firefighting veterans. All are volunteers who've spent months on the lines of forest fires of every type. More months in intensive training in special techniques of their trade, and more months learning the tough lessons of airborne attack. With the airborne attack underway, the pilot takes a turn over the fire scene and relays back to headquarters the first comprehensive survey. The sun, higher now, has heated the air at the lower end of the canyon. The warm air rises, and this new draft joins the breeze from the south and helps spread flames into the brush. They're burning away from the big timber, but blazing fast through the scrubby manzanita. The trucks are almost at roadhead now, and the men can see the smoke drifting from far down the canyon. By the time the ground attack force joins the smoke jumpers, the fire's blazing hard and moving uphill. Its spread is not too fast, and it's still moving away from big timber, but it's highly dangerous, and the men will need reinforcements fast. Yet, even if the flames jump their first line, they can still catch it at the top of the ridge. This is all reported back to headquarters by radio. At the ranger station, decisions of tactics are drawn. The fire is still small, but in a bad place, hard to get at, with prevailing south winds blowing the flames uphill. It's decided to set up a full fire camp and to hit the blaze with a second aerial attack. One of the latest tactics in fire warfare, only an experiment 5 years ago, today one of the most useful weapons in a battle against flames. Aerial tankers loaded with fire-depressant chemicals hit the fire area in a direct frontal attack. They won't put out the fire, but they'll slow it down, retard its progress, help contain it until the men on the ground can get it under control. The ground tactics are different. There's no way to extinguish the flames. You merely confine them beyond the fire line and let them burn out. Dig a fire line a few feet wide, chop through the brush and scrape away the twigs and needles and duff, so the ground fire will die for lack of fuel. Cut down overhanging branches, slash through thickets and brush, cut down saplings, get a ring around the fire so it'll spread no further. Hard, hot, tough work. As the thick leaves of manzanita are withered by the fire's heat, their oil is distilled and hissing sheets of white-hot flame shoot through the brush. The bushes have tough twigs, and when they're snapped, the broken points are like 1,000 tiny bayonets waiting to stab at your body. Meanwhile, heavy equipment has been mobilized and is on the way. Men and machines are on the move along a half-dozen mountain roads. Trucks are converging on a pre-chosen point, which will become the fire camp, the forward command post for the firefighters. By afternoon, camp has been set up. This will be field headquarters until the blaze is out. And because a battle is being waged, it has a military look. Acres have been marked off for parking, timekeeping, supply dumps, communications, first aid, and sleeping grounds. Cooks, supplies, and equipment to feed hundreds of men at any time of day or night. The weapons, Shovels, wedges, saws, knives, axes, and special implements designed just for firefighting. A portable shop for ordnance, keeping the tools sharpened to a razor's edge. Disposable sleeping bags for crews already in the fire line and for others who are still on the way. Every essential for firefighting is here, from pencils and shoestrings to canteens and timekeeping blanks. The camp is ready. From here come the commands, organized like an army, from fire boss down through division boss, sector boss, to crew boss on the fire line. Word has come in that the flames have jumped the line in 3 places. Decision, fall back from the ridge and start a new fire line. And the first cat has cut its own trail into the ridge itself. From now on, building fire line will be fast as the blade cuts deep into rocky soil. And more equipment is on the way from lumber camps and construction companies and road building crews. More men on the way, too. U.S. Forest Service men and firefighters from the State Division of Forestry will soon be joined by loggers and construction laborers, farm workers, men from nearby mountain villages, Job Corps volunteers, inmates from state prison forestry camps, and trained crews of Indians, among the most highly skilled and respected of the firefighters flown to the scene from reservations in the Southwest. A virtual army is being mustered to reinforce the fire line. By late afternoon, the situation looks good. The fire line is cut all the way around the leading edge of the flames, and winds forecast for the afternoon haven't developed. With luck, by morning they may be able to declare the fire under control. But they're taking no chances. Men and equipment will continue pouring into camp. By early evening, the fire line is completed all the way along the ridge. The flames that just a couple of hours ago were blazing through the brush have all but burned themselves out. Down the canyon, in what was once the fire's center, men are already at work digging undercut lines, trenches to catch any rolling pine cones or snags that could spread the fire back into unburned areas. To the casual eye, it would appear to be all but over. Only an occasional wisp of smoke breaks along the scorched earth. But the men who work here know the fire still lingers unseen, buried deep underground in glowing roots or burrowed far into a log, feeding on its own coals, and waiting for the wind that could start it on another rampage. For men who've been relieved, the welcome feel of cool water, the chance to wash the grime and grit and smoke of blazing brush out of your pores. And food for the kind of appetite a man knows only after that peculiar combination of smoke, heat, and hillsides has burned out his energy. Tonight they'll sleep under a sky smudged by smoke, and the moon will be red. A fine gray ash will filter down through the trees, and the distant ridge will glow all night with a false orange dawn. Night shift in the fire line. This is when the most telling work can be done, a time when men with miner's lights on their hats work with some advantage in a smoldering land. The temperatures go down, the humidity goes up, and a night chill settles into the canyons. But night gives the fire some advantage, too. Darkness can cover a telltale smoke when living flames eat along the forest floor, or a gust of wind turns a glow from pink to red, then to white in the cracks and crannies of a dead snag. The fire boss will get no sleep this night, for though the battle is going well in the fire line, there's one factor bothering him. The afternoon wind that was forecast, the wind that never came. Perhaps it'll blow up yet. Maybe it's only delayed. And the latest weather report doesn't look good. A dome of cold, dry, heavy air approaching from the north. And the barometer is falling. This could mean rain, which would be good, or wind, which could be disastrous. He hopes for the best and prepares for the worst. He'll send the day shift into the fire line early. A puff of wind moves up the canyon. High in the treetop darkness, the branches of pine and fir begin to sway. Along the ground, flames lick out a little brighter. But more important, the men in the lines see the flames bending around, turning the other way. Another gust, and the wind settles into steady 10, then 20 miles an hour. And from the north, the storm front is moving in, and it's bringing wind, not rain. Radio reports are in from all along the fire front, and they look bad. The wind has blown up the flames and turned them away from the carefully dug fire line, away from the brush and the top of the ridge, and into the heavy forest of pine and fir. There's much to consider now: length of new line required, terrain and cover, weather, burning conditions, number of men available, and their quality and condition. Just before dawn, a down canyon breeze strengthens the prevailing wind. Then a sudden updraft along the canyon floor. An 80-foot tree, its resins vaporized by the heat, explodes in a torch of flaming gas. Within minutes, a firefighter's nightmare. Crown fire, with flames towering above the highest trees and passing from one treetop to another. This is forest fire at its wildest, its most unpredictable, its most deadly. Every man, every piece of equipment will be thrown against it. As soon as there's enough light to see, specially trained men are flown in by helicopter to join with those who have already left camp in the pre-dawn darkness. The scout copter from headquarters is up too, mapping an estimate of the new situation, feeding information back to the fire camp, checking the rate and direction of the burn. The pre-dawn norther is whipped over the ridges, and with the tricky air currents of the canyon has spread flame in every direction. What yesterday was the front of the fire had become the rear. It's out of control in heavy timber. As the morning sun cuts hot across the ridges, flames spread fast before the updraft of the canyon floor. The smoke billows to 15,000, 18,000, 20,000 feet. People will see it 100 miles away and say, there must be a fire burning somewhere in the Sierra. And on the top of the smoky pillar, a white fluff of cloud rides like a cap. A few minutes ago, the moisture forming that cloud was part of the wood and leaves and pine needles on the forest floor. Turned to vapor by the flames, it rides now as a white mist, almost freezing, just below the edge of the stratosphere. In the higher canyons and along the ridges above them, men are building a new fire line and building this one with fire. The technique is backfiring, based on the fact that what is burned can't burn again. They're setting a line of controlled flame in the path of the main fire and letting the heat from the big blaze suck their backfire line toward it. Elsewhere in the fire line, more heavy equipment has been brought up during the night and is battling against time and wind to cut a band of raw earth around the perimeter of the advancing flames. As in any war, there are casualties. But with the safety precautions taken by modern firefighters, the casualties are more often machines than men. And there are the refugees of the battle, too. Those whose homes have been destroyed, whose offspring have been killed. Animals routed from their nests and burrows by choking smoke and searing flames. When night comes, the wind falls. Yet the fire still runs wild across hills and ridges, presenting 1,000 scenes from the imagination of a Dante. It's a world weird in shades of red and black, where you wince at heat and choke at a bit of smoke in your throat. Roar and crackle of flames mixed with the drum of diesel motors and thrash of machines crashing through thickets. Here on the mountain slopes, the temperature hit 103 during the day and was pushed higher still by the fire. But now there's a mountain chill at your back, even as your face aches from the heat. In the center of the Holocaust, the oxygen burns out of the air. For a second, trees glow like filaments of a light bulb. Then as the air bursts in with a hot blast, a whole half-acre explodes in a roaring cyclone of flame. In the dawn, the fire line scraped and bulldozed from the forest floor has again failed to hold the advance of the flame. Hours of work by dozens of machine and hundreds of men has been thwarted by a half-hour of wind. And so the orders to fall back to another ridge, build another line, and this time hope it holds. Yet the men on the line know the fire will burn on for many days. Days marked by a sun glowing through the smoke-smeared sky like a blob of tarnished brass. Days when each breeze will carry flecks of ash and the cutting, acrid smell of smoke. Finally, like an enfeebled giant exhaling dying gasps in red and yellow, the forest fire begins to burn itself out. In its wake, black and twisted spindles spiking a tortured land. Perhaps a forest shall grow here again, and in a time short as centuries are measured. But scaled by human terms, it'll be more than a lifetime before this earth again is green. For now this land can bear only a harvest reaped in ashes from seeds of devastation sown in flames. It began with a small act, an act that'll be repeated 1,000,000 times this weekend. But someone didn't take that extra second of time to be sure that match was out. It could have been as easily a carelessly dropped cigarette or burning material tossed from a car or a campfire that was left smoldering. This Labor Day weekend, more visitors will be in the forests of California than at any other time in history, and the woods are tinder dry. Fire conditions are explosive. If you were in the forest this weekend, your thoughtlessness could cause this scene. Be certain your smokes, your matches, your campfire are dead out. If you don't take those simple precautions, the forest you enjoy this holiday weekend may turn to smoke, ashes, and scorched earth. Assignment 4 is presented each week in the community interest by the documentary department of KRON-TV. The story of several fires were combined to make this composite biography of a forest fire. All scenes were filmed on location at actual forest fires in California. Be with us again next week for another report to the West on Assignment 4.